Okay, so welcome Sunday, April the 30th. Um, there's a few things I want to talk about, but I want to share I think it's more questions of exploration as well this morning. And it's around the concept and idea of control. So really interesting things that have been popping up for me personally. And so I tend to, when things pop up in the moment for me, um, my pattern, I think, of behavior has been spend time contemplating it and then sharing it after. And this morning I was really guided to share in the moment some of the thoughts that are happening. And so I'm just going to grab a couple of my books about control. And so how this started, really, this not even a rabbit hole, but these thought-provoking ooh and ah opportunities this morning came because I was wanted to share parts about why the importance of meditation in your life and length of time. There's a whole bunch of different opinions and point of views about how long one should meditate a day. As I really dive into my bachelor's degree and master's degree in metaphysics, meditation is the one thing. It's the one thing that is in every single module, every single book, every single lecture. Is meditation is key for us to be able to control our thoughts. That if and they have a couple specific ways that they suggest to meditate, very similar to other ways. Joe Dispenza talks, I mean, there's so many people that talk about meditation. Joe Dispenza talks about meditation. There's tons of uh free information, guided meditations on YouTube. So I don't feel like it's my responsibility here in the group to say this is the way to meditate, but rather to really, I think, share the importance of meditation. And it's kind of like affirmations and gratitude. It doesn't matter where I go in the world of exploring how to transform and transcend, those pieces come up: to control our thoughts, to use our imagination to visualize, to take inspired action, to meditate. Like, it's just, it makes me giggle because it's like, here's the plan, and one person talks about it, one guide. Here's the plan. It's the same thing, but maybe worded differently. Here's the plan. Here's the plan. And so I giggled because I thought, how resistant are we as we occupy a human body to meditating and to doing the pieces that it's so clear about. If you desire whatever, prosperity, love, transcendence, transformation, peacefulness, like whatever you desire, the steps are really, 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 like really, 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 really fucking clear. And yet we resist it. And so isn't that interesting? For me, it's an interesting thought process about how amazing is it that it's clear and we resist it, which we can tie that into other areas of our life. Like as business owners, to build a business is clear: marketing, sales, operations, and personal development, right? So there's three pillars, because you don't need personal development to have a successful business. You could be the biggest, and I'm sure some of us have met this, right? The biggest asshole, right? And not be very, right, personally developed, air quoting that one, and be successful in business. So you might not be happy. And then maybe they are, I don't know. that, but they might be successful in business. So you don't even need happiness to be successful in business, right? You need marketing, sales, and operations. So in all of those pieces, the importance of the radical honesty of what are you resisting, and so there's two things I'm talking about, but they're connected. Is what are you resisting in the steps, right, to have a quote unquote successful life, whatever definition of success is for you, which is important for you to define success based on your definition, not based on your parents or grandparents or friends or husband or lovers or whatever. And where and what are you in resistance to? So today, as I was reading about in the process of controlling our thoughts. So we have our unconscious and subconscious thoughts that are there, that once we bring them into awareness, we can do something with them, but we might not be aware. But though we do have control, and I'll use that word in air quotes for those of you who are listening afterwards, I'm air quoting, we do have control over our thoughts. They're influenced by our beliefs. So if we want to change our thought, we then, I would say, and I don't use this word very often, must change the belief to go along with the thought. So as I started to dive deep into this, how do you establishing, so the chapter actually is establishing and maintaining control over your life. And I instantly kind of felt my body do like this. Oh, isn't that interesting? And I was like, I am in awareness that there are different times of the word control. I'm move in resistance, and it's not that I'm not resonating. I'm in resistance. So then I sat this morning and thought, okay, so do I simply just change the word and not be in resistance, or is it time to possibly dive into what's the resistance in the word? And why diving into looks different now. I can just be open to the possibilities and say, to the God of my understanding, it looks like that word control is actually preventing me from creating an even epicer, not a real word, more epic life. And so if I meant to do anything with this information, then I need you to show me the way. Now that works well for me as my personality and human design type. As we talked yesterday, right? Manifestor generators and generators might need to ask a bit of a more direct question with a good old or response. So then I did start to do a little bit of research on what are other words. So other words are dominion, which means a sovereignty. Also could be a synonym as ascendancy, but also superiority, right? Control, the power to influence or direct people and behavior. And so I realized that my resistance to the word control is because what I energetically feel is I move into the need to influence or direct people's behavior. And I have resistance to influencing or being influenced by people's behavior, right? So there's the work that I have, right? And I'm fairly certain. I'm certain, and even for me personally, it's because I had such a shadow self of control. The shadow side of control is manipulation. So I read the words, the power to influence or direct people's behavior, and what it feels like to me is manipulation. So for me, I might still need to work on the energy of control, and there might be some hidden beliefs there, and I'm open to receiving the information of that, but I'm also in awareness that doesn't feel good in my body. So I will find and choose a different word that feels good to me, so I don't have the resistance to the words because I have a word like control. Does that make sense so far what I'm saying? So words are important, right? The energy of a word is important, and it doesn't matter if it means something different to you than somebody else. This is your own personal journey. So then I looked up dominate, and dominate is to have or exert mastery. Okay, that was kind of cool. Control, nah, but also to rule and control. So it's like, well, what would I want to dominate? And so I don't like to be dominated either. So it's like, I have resistance to that word. The word that I had the least resistance to was dominion, if I kept it in sovereignty, because sovereignty means supreme power or authority of self, to govern oneself. So for me, dominion over self and sovereignty over self has less stickiness, right? Less a negative energy, control energy than control. And for you, it might be something completely different. So I encourage you, when you feel yourself moving into resistance, to even consider the words that you're using. And do you need to use a different word? Do you need to explore a different definition? Or is it the work with the word, and you're meant to work on the energy of the word? And it doesn't have to be either or. It could be, it possibly could be, it could be both, right? And if we had, right, controlling parents, then we might have a tough word with the word control, right? So my dad being an alcoholic, my mom was extremely controlling and dominating over my father, trying to control him, his behavior, and the drinking. And so even when I hear the word bitch, so I think of someone who's trying to manipulate or dominate or control an outcome. So for me, it was a really interesting exploration this morning of all of the attitudes, behaviors, things that I think about when I think of control, or being controlled, or controlling, or anything around that topic, right? So even controlling my day doesn't feel good. Like I feel tense when I say I'm going to control my calendar. Like it's not quite like that anymore, but truly that's what happens. Like my body does this. So I was like, okay, for me, it was like, oh, this is so interesting that one word, my body does not appreciate, does not like. So I can fight against my body and control my thoughts about control, right? And I can go, that's interesting. Let me observe that for a little while. And how can I create space? This creates space within that word. And I know that makes probably no English sense, but for some of you, I think you'll sense what I'm saying, right? How to create space in the energy of the word. So it's not so like this for me. So this all came about because in this chapter of establishing, and maintaining control over your life, it talks about the seriousness, or how meditation helps. So students of meditation should experience a sense of control over their lives. I will use sovereignty, right? This is accomplished by taking away the demands of life from the personal part of the mind and turning over control of one's life to one's higher or God mind. And then I became aware the resistance is the turning over. So it came up because the turning over of control of my life to my higher power. So I can surrender, and I worked diligently at that word, because surrender used to mean for me, white flag, I give up, I'm going to like prison, right? I'm going to be, stuck in a side cave and not fed and not given water. Like I had this real visceral also reaction to surrender. And so what I became aware of this morning is the reluctance and resistance to give control of my life to a higher power. So I know that there's work there for me, opportunity there for me, because I'm willing to surrender. But right, I've worked with that word. The control piece is related to trust, right? Is trust. So for me personally, so then it's like, okay, so I still have opportunities of work in the world and words of trust of self, trust of others, possibly trust of my higher power, divine source, right? And so that's just kind of like, as you go through this, it's information. We're on a journey. So so no judgment required, but it can be like, oh, well, that's interesting. Then here's my opportunity for spiritual growth. That's how I look at it. Right. And then I will, I'll spend time meditating and journaling about those two things, control and trust. Right. There is for me an obvious resistance, which is surrounded with a belief. And so it'll be the work for me will be to tap into what belief is attached to those two pieces for me, so I can create a new belief around it, right? And then I turn that into an affirmation and a gratitude statement, right? So that I can feel the words, so I can hear the resonance of the words, because that's healing comes from our words, right? From our thoughts, from our feelings. Then I'll take the I am statements and I'm so happy and grateful now statements, and I'll visualize the new belief as if it's happening right now. So anytime you find yourself being triggered, tweaked, that like jump in your body it's like a yeah, but there's like so much golden opportunity for you to just pause in reflection versus judgment, and then utilize the tools that you have to take you through this particular to take you through your process. It might look different. Your process might look different than my process, but I know you all have a process that you use, right? What we're shown here in the textbook is students of meditation find that the higher power within them has taken charge of keeping their lives in order, right? And I was like, oh yeah, look at that. I love that, right? Students of meditation find that the higher power within them has the opportunity. I just switched to opportunity and I went, oh, look at me being resistance of something else being in charge of my life. That's trust. That's trust, right? And so then it was like second, so that was like at the second, oh, aha, trust, right? The next point they have is the tension and unrest that come from feeling that one has to go it alone, meaning the personal mind against the world is replaced by the universal mind controlling the world, thereby allowing individuals to be in control of their lives. So I'll read that again because this is so impactful. The tension and unrest that come from feeling that we have to go it alone, meaning the personal mind, like your personality, your ego, your id, your I, against the world, that you have to come up, that you, right, the ego, the id, the I, so that you, Tracy, had to come up with a personal strategic plan for your business, you alone had to come up with the goals and the structures for your life. And that can be overwhelming, because then we go into, well, I don't know how to do that, right? Or how do I do that? And what they're saying, what's being required of us is to replace the universal mind controls. There is a formless substance that moves into form. We can direct the formless substance and move it into form when we are connected to our divine self, our universal mind, our God power. These are all the same concepts, just different words, thereby allowing us as individuals, right, ego, id, I, to be in control of our lives. So then I was like, well, funny, haha, I'm okay being in control of my own life. Right? So I'm not in resistance to control as long as I have all the control. World domination here, thank you very much, right? And so I thought, then I started to laugh. And so it's like surrender to have dominion or sovereignty over our own lives, but we give over control to our higher mind to have control. It's kind of a mind fuck, right? We give over to have it. We surrender. I would say, for me, like I said, surrender was a word that I worked through. So, I would use that, right? To release control in order to have control, to understand where the resistance is, right? All of those pieces. But to be so clear that our tension and unrest comes from that we have to go at it alone. So what's our challenge in business is we think, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know where this is found. I don't know this. I don't know this. I don't, right? Where's the money going to come from? I don't know, right? If I knew, I'd have it. You're not, you, the ego, the id, or I, are not meant to know, right? You are meant to have conversation with your higher self, right? And allow your higher self to guide you so that then you do have control, because you have control over the actions that you take, right? So are you taking action from fear? Or are you taking inspired action? And so it can be a kind of a fine line. But meditation, again, I'll go back to the steps are clear. Meditation is part of the process. And it can be, however, I don't believe that there's a right way to meditate, right? There are, so people that I follow to meditate. Deepak Chopra is one person. Wayne Dyer is another person who talks about meditation. Bruce Lipton, I think, talks about meditation. Joe Dispenza talks about it. It has tons. If you're a science like data, Joe Dispenza has tons of science and data about what happens, like measurable data about what happens to you when you meditate. And it can be as simple as like a 5-minute, like just sit and breathe and focus on your breath. Or it can be a full dive 1-hour meditation, go through a routine or a journey where you're opening up all of your chakras, right? And your system, your energy centers. And again, I don't think there's a wrong way. I think we'll be led naturally where we're meant to go. We just have to, strong word. We have the opportunity to follow the path that's before us. It can be a guided meditation to start. It doesn't have to be you listening to your heartbeat and focusing on a candle. That's one way to meditate. It can look or feel like whatever is necessary for you. The steps are clear, though. The steps are clear. What I love about the metaphysics in what I'm studying is the connection between when we meditate, we actually open up the channel to our higher self even more. So for those of you who resist meditation, my question for you, and might be a 2-part question, so you might have to like change it into like 2 single questions, but are you resisting meditation because there's fear around opening yourself up even more, right? Are you resisting meditation around that, right? And it was interesting for me because it was like, well, yes, if I become, so here's what came to me. If I become any more empathic in nature, or more intuitive in nature, or more psychic in nature, there I had fear around that. How will I be able to handle that even more? Will I feel even more segregated from my family? Will I find myself even more sensitive to what's happening to the world, right? And so, and I had no idea that that was there, right? But then when I thought, like, when I started to, when I was last year, when I was when I knew I was in resistance to meditating. So I've been meditating I've been meditating every day for about a year. And things have like blown up psychically for me, intuitively for me. And I've just found some great mentors who I work with, who help me work with both the light and the shadow of what's going on, right, within me. So I realized that there was no fear. So I'll just check these questions. I'm just going to keep the recording on as I check the questions. Great. Okay, so Karen is suggesting Mercury retrograde is about, or not suggesting, Mercury retrograde is about things coming from the past to be looked at again, like bad habits, like resistance, arguments with others and self. Oh, that, yes, thank you for sharing that, Karen. That would be why there's stuff happening, coming up for me, right? This lunar eclipse is about bringing things to the surface, which reminds me, I need to send you some, I want to do your thing, so I got to send you some money. So I'm just, sorry, side note, everyone, sorry about that. This is how my brain works. Major life shifts as things come to completion of a cycle. Yes, 100%. And then the next comment is, we release our beliefs about control to original source self to gain back a new control that is without the old beliefs or any form of belief. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah. And we will never have control over the unknown. However, we can relax and feel the common acceptance and possibly suggest. Correct. And Diane, fear of opening more, becoming more. Can I handle that? Yeah, right. That was mine. Can I actually handle, can I handle any more of this? Could I be any more? Right. And what would happen if I was, right? What would happen to me if I did that? Right. And I didn't, and again, it was a very subtle, a very subtle thing for me. And it was because outside influences telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about, right? Like evidence of when I would share what was going on, like, I feel like this is happening, and then people saying to me, well, that's not true, Rachel, you're crazy, right? And then me believing the outside person, and then when it unfolded that it was the truth, then it was this, I didn't listen, so there was pain. Sorry, I just had a hit. So and this is how I process outside. So thank you very much. Was that Diane that you said that? Because what came to me is this trust piece has to do with my marriage to Darcy, because he told me for years that I was crazy and making shit up about him having girlfriends. And so then I allowed, right? I allowed that to be like, okay, I'm crazy. I'm just this jealous Scorpio girl. And then when it all unfolded, that I was angry because I didn't trust myself. So I was more as angry with myself, truthfully, than I was with him, because deep down I knew, but I wasn't willing to see it, because then I knew I would need to make a decision, and I wasn't willing to make the decision, which I made, which was to end the marriage. And that has to do with trust of self, trust of higher power. Like, seriously, I'm being just so much in love with him. So thank you for that gift that you gave me, because now I know now I know what I need to explore in the trust piece. So let me see if there's anything else there for us. There's a last bit here, I guess I'll share. Establishing and maintaining control over your life, its success and its happiness means turning your personal mind over to the controlling, use different words, right? Universal mind. So, and exactly what you said, right? Establishing, maintaining control over our life and its success and happiness means turning our personal mind. And we need our personal mind. Now, I say ego, id, I. You can call it personal mind. You don't have to call it ego, id, I. Over to the controlling, meaning sovereign. So I will use the word sovereign, universal mind, the divine mind, right? The formless substance. We can even go to quantum physics if we're not wanting to follow the spiritual path, right? And then to understand how this works and how to go about accomplishing it, carefully study and apply it talks about the practices and contents of this module, which I'll share over the next couple of days. It starts with meditation, though, going into a daily practice of meditating, right? And again, what that might look different for you every single day. One meditation might be 5 minutes where you're listening to your heartbeat. And maybe you just focus on one area, right? So that's what I did. I first started, I committed to doing 5 minutes a day, right? And so I would just start, and I would focus on, so the different chakra centers are different energy centers. So I just focused on a different energy center a day. I went, so in an order, like for me, I started with my lower chakra, opening up my lower chakra center, right? And just thinking about the different colors that go with that, which is orange, and just sitting within, feeling the energy of that energy center and my breath. And I think that first time I was like 10 or 15 minutes, because I just sat, and every time I had a thought, I didn't try to empty my mind like I tried to when I was in my 20s, right? Following Deepak Chopra, just empty your mind. And I mean, I have a dialogue going in my mind, right? As a creative neurodivergent, or just a gift, I have no idea. There is a dialogue that happens all the time. But what I found myself through meditation was the dialogue was no longer a crowded, like, murmurs, like, because that's what was in my mind all the time, but rather one dominant voice, one dominant energy, one dominant sense or feeling would come to play. One dominant thought would come up. So I didn't dismiss the thought, I honored the thought, right? I honored the thought because I was able to, so I would say, quiet the mind. I was quieting the murmurs. Even now, when if my day has, and in the dialogue in my head sounds like that, I'm in awareness, for me in particular, that those are my guides, right? Like I have, for me, I have guides. I believe everyone does, but I'm just sharing my own personal point of view. And I'll just ask, okay, this is too much, right? White noise. Could one person or one guide step up and share what the collective wants to tell me, right? And then I'll have that. Then I'll have one thought that comes up. And for me, it's usually fairly quickly, one thought that comes up, so that the message of the collective for me, right? So we all need to work with our own, right, personalities and all of our own different ways of communicating with our guides, the different guides that we have as well. And the last bit that I'm just actually being asked to share with you, which I hadn't I didn't know this was going to be a thing. So the last bit is, if you're experiencing a Groundhog Day and you feel like you're doing everything to follow the steps. So here's the steps: meditation, visualization, imagining as if, I am statements, I am so happy and grateful now statements, inspired action. That's the steps. If you believe that you're doing that and you're still experiencing your Groundhog Day, I'm being asked to share with you that you may require a new guide or new team to guide you. So you can ask them, ask the guides that have helped you in the past and are no longer required. You can ask them just simply to step back, just take a step or two back. And then you can ask the new guides that are required to assist you to move your life to the place that you want to be. Ask your new guides to step in as well. Karen, my friend, is there anything else that you would add to that? Karen's an expert in this, by the way.
I don't think I'm an expert.
I know, I was like, and she's not going to like that. Okay, so
No,
Karen,
but I mean, that's really true, because I just wrote, like, a few months ago, I fired 3 of my guides. Because if they've been with you for a long time, you assume they're the right ones to be with you, and they may have been the right ones at a certain time in your life.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're the right ones still today. And this is very, very true for people who work with their ancestors.
Yeah.
We get very blinded by that. There's a word that, whatever it is for each person, about what ancestors mean, that they can't say no, they can't let them go, they can't move on. But yeah, no, your points are awesome. So no, truly, like yesterday, figure out your yeses and your nos. Right. Check in with your body, know what your highest point of source is, whatever. And Rachel is awesome at giving us so many different words. Find one that resonates with you. And then go into that. What I do is I go into that as being, oh, sorry, here's Uncle Art. It's me a second.
Yeah.
Anyway, hi, Uncle Art, give me just a second. Using the word truth, like, is this the guide for me now? Is this the guide that has my highest interest and my highest good and no agenda attached? Here to, and then whatever word, serve, help. Oh, he hung up on me. No problem. Does that make sense? Like, I know I'm rushing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. Because I just wanted to ensure what we're asking the highest part, the highest, right, light.
Yeah. My personal words are pure, to go to the original source prior to distortions. So prior to any other changes or something that are currently in play.
Yeah. Original source. All right. Thank you.
That's just mine. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I gotta go.
No, you gotta go talk to Uncle Art, right?
This is a great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. So yes, so I think that was the last. Well, I was not expecting that last topic to come up, but as I was sharing the information, that came up, that we can ask for new guides, right? And especially if you feel like, as I said, if you're in that phase or place where you're hitting that wall or the Groundhog Day over and over again, then it might be time for a new team to step up and to work with you. And there could be, excuse me, as I move energy for all of you, there might be a bit of resistance to that, right? And so just explore that resistance, right? And if you're, again, you can ask open-ended questions. What am I resisting being, doing, or having? Or if you're a generator or manifesting generator in human design, you'll need to ask specific yes/no questions, right? And the other last point I did want to make today was, in human design, if you are a generator or manifesting generator and you do need the aha or questions, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. You might need someone to ask you the question. So you can simply ask a friend, or if you have a spouse or partner, and I just say to them, I need you to ask me this question, and you give them the question to ask and have them ask you, and then you can have an aha or right? So because often we need people to ask, another voice to ask us the question, especially if it's a belief that created, right? Uh, uh, the situation, the experience that we're in. Excellent. Okay. Let me just stop the recording.